Hello, Griffin. Hello, Griffin. And of course, we have Megan Follows, who plays Catherine de Medici. And Kitty, how with you?
I'm good. And I have my buddy Charlie here with me. This is Charlie.
Hi, Charlie. Hi. And of course, Torrance Coombs, who plays none other than Bash. Who's your friend hanging out with us today?
This is Renly.
Hi, Renly. Oh, so fluffy. And Rachel Scarston, who plays Queen Elizabeth. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. And I have Hazel.
Hi, Hazel. And we have Craig Parker, who plays Stefan Narcisse. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm very, very good. Sadly, I just have this.
Who's that?
Friend, and he talks to me now, and he never, ever, ever disagrees with me.
Is this a quarantine thing? Is this your friend?
This is my friend. We're in a bubble together.
Oh. And of course, we have Adam Crosdale, who plays Lord Bothwell. How are you doing? Oh no, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Push the button.
Hi guys. Can you hear me out? Perfect. Nice to see you all virtually. I also brought along a little friend. It's a voodoo doll. Someone gave this to me. It's probably best that I have it and not that person. I like to call him Mr. Mayor. And I keep him in a lead box, highly locked up, triple locked lead box in my basement so he can't get out at night and steal my breath as I sleep.
Why do you call him Mr. Mayor?
You know, because he's the stuff of nightmares. He just sort of creeps in at the edges of my vision.
That's
terrifying. But look at it, all the pins in it. I mean, actually, to tell you the truth, this is actually a prop from a show that I was in called Preacher, which involved all sorts of weirdos. But yeah, I thought I'd bring him along today, seeing as I don't have a pet, in lieu of a pet.
Well, I'm glad that was your choice, was a voodoo doll. Very much appreciated. How is everyone doing? Thank you for giving us your time. Where is everyone calling in from, first of all?
Los Angeles?
LA, yeah.
LA.
Megan and I are Toronto.
Okay, so
Toronto.
pretty much
Toronto, where we filmed.
That's right, where we filmed, where the castle was.
Where the castle was.
The inside, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into some of the location stuff as well in the panel. We have some questions from fans that they've submitted on Twitter, that they've submitted on Twitch. You guys probably can't see it right now, but there is hundreds of people watching and the Twitch chat is going crazy. They're watching from all around the world as well, which is incredible. Please drop wherever you're watching from. We'd love to know. We've had people from Barcelona coming in and watching. It's been pretty awesome. So thank you guys again. How are you kind of handling quarantine right now and staying sheltering in place? Is there anything, a new hobby that you're picking up or just some activities that you're getting really good at?
Animal
Craig taking out with this voodoo doll.
One of the things I do love though is, and you know, old people talk about, you know, the Battle of Britain and the war, talking about how afterwards people became really like, I'm cooking all the time, but you use up everything. You go, oh, I've got a moldy old sausage in the cupboard and a bit of a potato. I'll make something. So I'm kind of liking thatness of it.
Yeah.
My
For
favorite.
all the things in the back of your pantry, and you're like, oh, this can of beans. Like,
I'm also scared for all the people getting
1912.
food poisoning though, a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard to know if you have food poisoning or corona at this point.
For me, it's hard to know if I have PMS or coronavirus.
Oh no.
Am I hormonal or am I dying? I don't know.
It's anything right now. It's a weird headspace to be in.
You get it bad. You get it bad.
Megan, what about you? How have you been handling your time with quarantine?
I've been bonding with Charlie. Charlie and I, we've been bonding. This is my mommy's dog, so I've been walking Charlie, and I've been doing a lot of cooking. Not with the moldy sausage, Craig. And actually going out in the garden. She's got a garden. It's spring here, so trying to help clean up and, you know, domestic things.
Oh, I love that though. Those are great excuses to actually get outside. Like, I don't know what the weather is today.
Today it's cooler, but it had been quite getting warm there, hadn't it, Rachel? But now it's like went down to freezing last night, so that was.
I know it was. It
Oh my
was
gosh.
a moment where you're like, it's come, it's arrived, spring, and then it wasn't.
Like, nah.
No.
Just joking.
It was a spring tease.
But it does make me feel better that it's been raining in LA. Otherwise, I'd
It's
have
been so
beautiful
cold
today.
here.
The rain's over now. The sun's out. The air is clean.
Yeah.
Oh no.
That is the one thing I don't miss about shooting rain is the winters in Toronto were when we first started. I sort of joined. I was getting plants for the balcony, and people were like, and I asked around, what plants will survive winter, and everyone just laughed. That was it.
Plastic one.
Yeah,
I know.
Dog poop.
Exactly.
brutal.
But at least like your costumes aren't, it's not like they're very thin material, or were they? They seemed like they would wear up to the elements. Was that at least a help?
It feels like they were hot in the summer and cold in the winter.
Just
Yeah,
what you want, really.
Yeah. Full and silk
One of the biggest.
tend to sort of oh no, it's not incubate. Oh my gosh. They're not warm, is what I'm saying.
Insulated.
Insulate.
Yeah.
There we go. Insulate.
And actually, one of the biggest
Interesting.
problems is when you're outdoors and on a show like this, like television hates it when you wear a hat. They're like, we don't recognize you when you wear a hat, so you can't wear a hat. So you're out there, and like everything else has 5 layers, but your ears and everything else is just completely exposed, and you freeze.
Interesting, especially for a period. I never knew that about hats and costuming.
And the pleather pants that all the dudes were wearing, like in the height
Yeah.
of the Toronton summer, like walking through fields of daisies, me and Mary, that one day we spent out there. I mean, you just had to, you were stuck inside the pants for several hours afterwards.
no.
trying to take them off. Yeah.
It's not enough talcum powder in the world to make that up.
I was gonna ask.
Lawrence just ripped his pants though. He'd just rip them wide open.
Oh my God, remember that? That's so
Is that a real?
That was if there was a running thing for a while where I split through like 3 or 4 pairs of my pants.
Strong work, mate.
Maybe get back.
He was
Now.
getting-
You have to give more context.
the leather couldn't contain the booty.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah,
Could not
that kind of says it all.
The main one I remember, actually, it was a scene, like, we actually shot it indoors in a bunch of, like, cotton snow, and I was picking up Megan. I was picking her up, like, she was dying in the snow, and I was picking her up. I
Thought about that.
to pick her up, and it just goes, just bursts open. Like, not
Forgot about that. That's right.
a little, yeah. And I felt that.
You had to back out of the maze, out of the snow labyrinth.
Maybe
They're like, that's such an interesting choice, Torrance, to back out of the maze like that.
Actually, Carm3x07 from Twitter asked, what was your favorite costume if you had one? The costumes in this show are phenomenal. So I'm sure there must be some that stood out where you're particularly like, oh, I love this.
Black Alexander McQueen gown with keyhole neckline and a gold beaded collar.
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I got a priest outfit in one episode, and I wanted to keep that. It's like the full. That was fun.
To go with your voodoo doll.
Yeah.
Do you guys have much say in the costuming or the pieces that were chosen for your characters, or was it completely like all done by the designers?
Well, one of the things that Meredith, who was our costume designer, she was so incredible at what she did.
Extraordinary. Yeah.
I really loved how she chose colors for every character. I mean, at least for the women. So Rose had a lot of pink hues. I had a lot of gold tones. Addie and Megan, what were your colors? Like Addie wore red a lot.
Yeah, a lot of red, a lot of black.
I was gonna say I wore red and black too. I started off red in the first season, and then black and gold,
Mm-hmm.
And then Meredith kind of went wild because she started to use materials that were also like upholstery materials.
Yeah.
So she got really playful. So some of those were hot because they weren't best for the breathing element. They were, I'd have these jackets, you know, these coats with these very military looking shoulders and long depth. So it was pretty fantastic. I don't have a
one of those, didn't you? You kept a coat, didn't you?
I did.
Oh, rude. I didn't get anything. I got a pair of
I kept the coat. I kept one of my long black ones with the gold. And when I'm feeling lonely, in the house, I just walk around by myself, going down the stairs, saying I'm ready for my clothes up.
Did anyone else keep anything?
Yeah.
I think I put my boots aside and I was going to take them, but then I forgot in just to move out. But they were, because all the other boys in the show are really tall and I was several inches shorter than them. So when I started, I asked Meredith if they could make me boots. So I had these like ridiculous drag queen boots and they made me 6'2" and I loved it.
Yeah.
But I had them
that's
aside
great.
and I forgot as we left and it was like, damn. So I lived my
You
life.
could have worn those everywhere.
I know.
And you almost did.
So instead, I'm doomed to a life of being short still.
I remember when I first joined, Meredith sent through, she said, we're going to need a lot of very detailed measurements. I'm sure we all had this for your body. And it went into detail with the measurements in a way that I haven't had on other shows. And she used the phrase, for when we build your costumes. And I was like, holy and that was the psychology that, she works with. I just love that, building, structuring, and they're just the layers upon layers of thought. And they're fascinating costumes. Yeah, she was very cool. She sort of said, I was just thinking about Bothwell, what type of jewelry does he wear? Because, people of the time, men used to wear a lot of rings and a lot of all those sorts of things. And she was quite, with me, collaborative. And we sort of said, well, he's sort of a man of the earth. So I think she had already chosen a lot of the earthy tones for his stuff. And we just decided on almost zero jewelry. I think I just had one pinky ring, his signet ring and all the rest. But she's a genius. I mean, she'd done it all. But
she also had an amazing cutter, Michelle.
Yeah.
And he was she would give the designs and the thoughts, and Michelle structured it, cut that material, and put those gowns together. He was amazing, wasn't he?
Yeah. And they were doing this, you would go in for a fitting and you knew you were wearing that costume in 2 days' time. Mm-hmm. So, and it would still need all this work. And then the team would just go, and you would every time you would turn up, when you were shooting, it would be perfect. It would fit you perfectly. It would just magnificent.
Mm.
That's incredible. And that's cool. So you get to kind of work from the outside in and also the inside out, depending on what your acting style is. But it's great that they're very collaborative. Absolutely. I feel like as a viewer, that really sets the tone of the show as well. And something I kind of wondered is, sort of speaking of the tone of the show, these characters are incredibly funny. Oh,
Megan,
does someone else want to join? Does someone want to join?
Oh, do you have to take the phone?
Sorry, excuse me. I have to take a call.
In New Zealand, we have, when you're shooting something, we have a slab is a slab of beer. So it's like a big 24-pack of beer. Okay. And if someone's phone goes off on set, the entire crew shouts out, slab! And that person has to buy the rest of the people that have a beer.
Slab!
I mean, I get to drink it all, or I have to buy everybody a slab?
Yeah, all of us separately.
That's all right. I just have my water, my body.
So I wanted to ask you all, your characters are all very cunning and powerful in different ways. I know as a viewer, when I watch, I am like, that is my attitude is set for the day because I've been watching these like very cunning characters. Did that for you as an actor ever kind of bleed over into real life as well? Like you're in that headspace and now for the rest of the day, like you're that character.
No, I swear too much to carry Mary with me throughout the whole day. It's really realistic. Mary's pretty classy, and I'm not most of the time.
What about
Craig,
you,
how
Megan?
about you? I
Well,
want to know
I-
what Craig's gonna say.
I try to have people fear me, but they never do in real life. No, what I loved about it, it was such, because also our world there was so immersive that, you know, the sets were, we weren't just shooting in a house or on a street. So we would step into these amazingly beautifully constructed worlds. So it always felt like a very simple but special process. You step into the world, you play in that amazing world with the costumes and the sets and the props and the characters, and then when you leave, it's clearly you're sort of stepping away from that world. So I think it was an easier process probably for I don't know about Megan Follows though.
I tried not to take my poisoning techniques. So poison people I don't like. No.
Try to leave that at the set.
You know what? It's it was so much fun. I loved playing Catherine. She was just the best. You know, it was playful and outrageous, and you got to look fantastic. So you know, you'd kind of crawl into a trailer at 4 something in the morning, and then by the end of it, you emerged, you know, out of your cocoon, like transformed. So it really was sort of a thing where you had this special space, and then at the end of the day, you'd take it all off the layers, kind of like this special thing that you got to come and play with, and then put away for the night, and then come back the next day and do it again. So it was it was a great group. These guys were fantastic to play with and work with. I have to say, it's one of the best experiences I've had, the most fun, the most cohesive group, you know, all of you guys, and the crew, one of the best crews I've ever worked with. They were just like
They were dynamite.
they were fantastic. So I just feel really, really lucky.
Well, we're very grateful as well. I know I can definitely speak for this giant group of people that are watching right now and just blowing up the chat. I know that we're very grateful, and thank you guys for creating this wonderful show. Like it's so entertaining and interesting and really very kind of gripping to watch and enjoy. You all mentioned locations, and Once Upon a Waffle on Twitter actually asked, what was your favorite filming location? Once Upon a Waffle on Twitter.
Yes.
What was your favorite location and why?
Ireland.
Ireland.
That's a broad location.
Yeah.
The what?
What was your like favorite and least favorite location?
Ooh. Is there any, especially like with the weather, was there anything that was kind of just particularly tough?
Actually, Ireland was amazing. The castle stuff when we didn't sell, but and I think Ben was with us. We went to Ireland during winter, and it was a storm, and we were up the top of a hill for 2 days in the rain, and that wasn't much fun. We were kind of wet, and it was like.
No.
It's like Ireland is so beautiful in spring and summer, and in winter it's just like living in soup. that wasn't a great deal of fun.
I guess that depends on how you feel about soup.
Well, cold soup.
The single worst location though was in Ireland, and it was shooting. Was it episode 2, Addie? And it was.
At the castle by the lake. We were sitting.
Well, we were out on the cliffside, and it was windy, but those midges.
Yes,
so
into our eyeballs.
it's like
And
the
that-
of France and England, and they have these microscopic little flies that crawl into your eyeballs and start biting things.
Right ear. Right ear, every
Scottish midges, yes, they're a thing. They're absolutely awful. Yeah.
There was
terrible.
a little girl, a little 6-year-old girl who was playing a princess that day who had more self-control and professionalism than the rest of us combined. She was stone-faced when she was doing her takes while the rest of us were like twitching and flinching. She was incredible.
And then there was an extra who just stopped giving a fuck in the background who was going,
We were like, dude.
dude, just
We know.
That's a new drinking game for anyone who wants to go back and watch. You have to drink every time you see someone wiping their eyes in the episode.
Exactly.
Switching.
That's wild.
We had a pretty brutal one when Will and I were when I was killing Will, who played Darnley.
Yeah.
That was pretty rough that night. It was beginning to be the Toronto winter, or maybe we were into the Toronto. We were into, let's face it, it started forest everywhere, and it sort of blew my mind how cold things could actually get on planet Earth. And we were out in front of this location, and it was a sort of partial ruin, or was made to look like a partial ruin. And there was all this pyro going on in the background. This house was burning down, and we were fighting, and it was snowing, and it was sort of icy, and it was muddy, and it was 4 a.m. And it was just so brutal. I just saw, and you know what's really funny is being on the show is every Canadian that I bumped into, bar none, they were just like, we love it here, but if I have to take another fucking winter, I'm going to shoot. Every Canadian was like, I'm off to the Bahamas. I'm off to they just can't stand the winters there. And I can understand why.
The best was Ben Garens in his first, it was like the wrap party after his first season. And we're standing outside and he's wearing like a balaclava, like like this, with like a big jacket and these massive gloves. And he's from Australia originally. And he's like, who the F? Like, obviously he's right. He's like, who the F settles here? Like, what crazy person got off the boat and was like, yeah, I'll stay here. This is great. Like, he was so mad. Like, he just couldn't understand why anyone would ever settle Canada. That's a shocker.
We also had Amy Cole on Twitter asking, what was funniest memories of filming with horses? I imagine that's like a whole other realm when you're now bringing wild animals into the mix.
This comes up every panel we do.
Really?
Horses. Yeah, I had a really cheeky horse named Sid, and I had him for the entirety of my time on the show, and he just loved to steal focus all the time. So like, I remember I'd perfected this dismount where I got to swing my legs over, and I had like a sword and all this other stuff. So it was actually really difficult. So usually I would kind of stumble and it didn't look cool. And then finally I rode in, like nailed my mark, did perfect dismount, stuck the landing, walked up to deliver my line, and he just like backs his ass into frame and starts on a tree. I was like, oh well.
Horses also are just love
awesome.
to go to the bathroom whenever they like. So there's nothing like being in a nice, really serious moment, and even if there's a horse behind you, and all of a sudden that telltale sign of the tail.
You're like, oh no.
Like, oh, okay. Well, I hope that wasn't a comment on my performance, because
got the old that going on too. You have to wait for it to retract before you can start shooting.
Are you talking about horse penises right now?
Is this okay, Rachel? This is you let me know. Do we need a content warning?
We're all adults here.
You guys said it, not me.
That's true.
This reminds me of your best dance move. I miss you so much.
We should do another question.
What's your
hang on, wait. What
Flashback.
Okay, we'll move past that.
That's your dance.
I think maybe it was innuendo. I think.
Well, that always
that's okay.
Innuendos.
That's okay. I'll ask another question actually for you, Rachel. When moving along, when you joined the cast, so by the time you joined the cast, we had been hearing about Elizabeth for ages. The audience had already, I think, sort of built a relationship with that character before ever even meeting you. Did that feel like a loaded role to step into at all, or were you like, nah, I'm Elizabeth?
It didn't when I got the part, but then when I got the part, I wanted to watch all the episodes, so I was caught up to it. And I started about 2 weeks after I got the part. So I mean, I was deep in Reign. Like, I watched all, 41 episodes before I joined, or 43 episodes or so. It was wild.
Yeah.
And then I started getting a little nervous as I was watching it because she was referred to so much. But, and then it was also a bit of a disaster doing that to myself because I became a fan of the show. And then I meet all these people and I'm like really nervous. And my first scene was with Megan. And like, I don't think I've ever been so nervous to do any. Yeah, especially growing up in Canada. Like, I mean, I knew who you were and you're just an incredible actress. And so I just remember sitting in that chair and you being across from me and the accent and it was all so new, and the costumes, I couldn't breathe in my corsets. But thankfully they didn't fire me and it all worked out fine. But yes, definitely I was nervous. I got really nervous in the lead up.
Aww. I have a question initially for Megan, but I also want to ask everybody. So this comes from Elder441 Diane. Yesterday on Instagram Live, Toby was asked if he would play another role on Reign, and he said, Catherine, great role. Megan is an amazing talent. Would love to know what role she would play.
Oh my God, there's so many. I mean, Mary is an amazing role. She's the, and I can't imagine anyone doing it better than Adelaide, but it's an amazing, she's a really tricky role too, because she's often at the effect of other people's actions, but she's still driving the action of the show. So it's very complicated. Elizabeth is a great role, but you know what? I'm going to just say I love me some Narcisse.
Aww.
Basically everybody's role. If I couldn't, every week I'm gonna play somebody else, and yeah.
Just give me a role, any role.
Just give me a role.
I turned up to work one day, and I think, Megan, were you directing this?
Yes, I was.
Oh, yeah.
I had an afternoon call, and I turned up and came out of the trailer and went, and there was me in the car park, wearing my clothes with a beard, and it was Megan Follows. So
it was my Halloween night.
Do you have a picture of that? I wish you had.
I think I do. I'm going to try to find that.
Please.
Photo.
She was spitting image too.
It was actually like, it was crazy. She looked
crazy.
Craig, did you call your reps immediately and get legal on it? Do you know what I mean? They're trying to edge you out of it. You know, you have to lock that shit down.
Did you put this together yourself, or did you have them help you?
No, I said I wanted to be Narcisse. And then I kind of also did a bit of Adam. I then kind of did a bit of you too.
Yes, you did. Yes, you're so versatile. It's sickening.
I know.
Terrifying.
Makeup and hair. They were so excited. They found me a short brown. They found me a wig, and then Linda put like the stubble. We were gonna put a beard on. Said she created like the sort of, the morning after kind of sexy stubble that you boys have. Gave me a costume. I'll find it. It's worth it. It's worth the giggle.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
Impressive.
Were there any other characters that you all kind of looked at throughout the run of the show and thought, oh, that'd be kind of fun, or that seems like a neat character to get to play?
I had moments of wanting to be Clarissa.
Okay, fair.
Creeping through the walls, hiding under beds.
It was just the storyline that we never quite knew where it was going or what was happening. It just kind of lurked and hid in places.
Yeah. Actually, that kind of brings up a good point. How much of the script were you really kind of given ahead of time in terms of knowing your character's arcs, or was it different for each person?
Nothing.
Really?
We shot it. We'd get a script knowing what happened next.
So and they like to play with the idea too, because a lot of the characters are liars. A lot of them, everyone is manipulating everyone else. So I came in second season and was going, I don't know how to work like this. And all the other guys, talking to Megan and Addie and everyone, they were just like, play it for real. So if you have this scene, play it for real. Next week, you could have been lying, but these people are great liars. So they lie like they're telling the truth. And a lot of the time you thought you were doing one thing, and then a script would come in, you go, oh no, I was doing that thing over there.
So Craig, I wish that I'd had your boots, because I found them.
It would be so cool.
Let's see if you can.
No.
But I'm short there. Yeah, there's yeah. But
That's so good.
yeah.
Oh yeah, if you
I know.
Even have the facial expression down.
Yeah.
Like, look at that.
Yeah.
So fantastic.
that's so good.
Looks like you want to get in a bathtub.
And I think what was funny, because I was prepping that day and I went on the location scout, and first nobody knew who the fuck I was. They didn't know, the crew didn't know who this. They thought I was a young man. Like, who is this strange young man in these clothes? And it was me. Yeah.
You guys kind of touched on.
That happened to me too, though. With Tony. Do you remember Tony, our camera guy, Tony?
Yeah.
And I went to I can't remember, some gathering we were having, and it was the first time that any of them had seen me not in my wig. And I went up to Tony, and I mean, he was on a camera. He was looking at me all day long. And I was like, Tony, what's up? And he was like, hey,
Who are you?
weird girl. Yeah. And I was like, it's me. And he's like, yeah. Like, no clue. It's amazing what hair and makeup and like wigs and that kind of thing.
Okay, here's my Boswell.
There you
Oh,
are. You
very
look
bossy.
amazing. Look at
This is amazing.
that. I've got that as well on my phone somewhere. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So cool.
So we have a question from Tracy Ann on Twitter, who asked, "You guys ever slip into your accents outside of filming by accident?" I know accents are a huge part of this.
All the time. Addie.
Really?
Yeah, it just depends who she's with. She has a different accent. She hasn't, like, you have such an incredible array of accents.
I can't help it. I mimic whoever I'm talking to. And like, if I'm talking to people from the UK, that comes out. If I'm talking to Americans, that comes out. If I'm thinking about my mom or my natural accent, then I sound more Australian. If I'm talking to other Australians, it gets really bad. Can't understand me at all. But yeah, my accent is very fluid.
There was when Ben, the wonderful Ben Gurens, joined. What was Ben's character's name?
Gideon.
When Gideon and Addie and Gideon began their love affair, it was like a number of times it's like, stop it, because they'd be like, oh yeah, I really love you. Oh, Bonza. Right?
Okay, Barry.
Spin-off.
The first time in 3 years I got told off for my accent. The first time my accent wasn't perfect was when I was working with Ben.
Yes.
Terrible.
You guys, like, straight up Crocodile Dundee together.
G'day, mate. How the fuck you going?
I don't know if you guys had any. You probably wouldn't have had this. Well, maybe you might. But when I auditioned for Bothwell in the first place, you know, he's the biggest Scottish patriot imaginable, bar with Barry. You know, and I was kind of doing him like this a bit, you know, like a proper broad, like Scottish, you know, and and the producers sort of came up and they were like, you know, in the final script meeting, they're like, no, we're not gonna be doing it like that, because maybe America might not be able to key into the accents too broad. I find myself doing the speech to Darley, to Will Kemp, about, you know, if I had my way, I would cover these. I hate the English. I cover these hills in English blood. And when we came to do the scene with Addie, and I had to say that to Ben, I mean to Will, I was sort of dying on the inside, because I'm using my crispest sort of received pronunciation English accent, saying, I hate England. And if I had my way, these hills would run with English blood. I just thought it's kind of just crazy how one has to, you know, taking into account one's audience, how you have to sort of alter accents accordingly.
But then wasn't it weird how Barrowman had a Scottish accent?
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
How
did he have it?
What
Just
he was
went,
doing, and they
I
went,
want to.
John was like doing a Scottish accent, and they were like, oh, okay.
Because he's him, right?
It's tell Barrowman no. Like,
Exactly.
of course, he can do whatever he wants. It's fabulous. But
Exactly.
when I auditioned, I did it in 3 different accents. I did Scottish, British, and French.
And French. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It would make sense because she grew up in France. So she
Yeah.
would technically speak English or Gaelic with
French
her
accent.
You did it with 3 different accents in your audition?
It's wild.
In the one scene.
Depending on who she was talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I changed for every character that entered the scene. It was
What was the audition process like? Do you guys remember your auditions? Obviously, Adelaide, you did your accents, but what was that like when you got cast?
Addie, were you in the room? Did you go into the room and meet them?
They hadn't opened up casting the Rain when I went in for it, so I got to like pick my own scenes from the pilot episode, and I went in by myself, like into the casting office, like not even into their casting room at the CW, and they like taped me on the couch, and I did a little like "This is me" video. What up? And that was kind of that. That was it. It was very different from how it usually goes down. Most auditioning processes are not like that at all. But yeah, I didn't have a traditional casting process for Rain because they hadn't even opened a casting office for it yet. I managed to sneak in before they even started looking.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
What about you, Megan? I know you've mentioned that you don't love auditioning before. Do you remember what this one was like for Rain?
Yeah, and the reason I don't love it is usually my nerves, to be honest. I just, it's a nervous thing. It's not that I don't understand doing it. It's just that it would make me, it's because you put so much time and effort and thought and worry and concern and blah, 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 blah. And then you're in a room for 3 minutes or, so sometimes that part is like, but Rain again was an interesting one because actually they'd already been looking, so they had done one round and looked and hadn't quite found what they were looking for, and they also were looking quite young, and then I think once they had Toby, probably they then opened the doors and went a little bit older, which let us old people in the room for an audition. So I put my teeth back in and I did my hair. And I went in, and it was really nice because the creators were in the room and the director was in the room, along with there was like an audience in that room. And what was really nice about that was that I did one thing, and I was able to, Brad Sieberling was our director. He gave me some direction. I made an adjustment, which is nice. So I showed them, I took his direction, did something different. And then they asked me to improv. So I just did a scene where I was improving, pretending to do, one thing, waving at people while I was secretly figuring out how I was going to kill them, and had them laughing. And I walked out the door, and then they were going to call me. So I was going to get the call back for the screen test. And then they just said, we're just going to use this audition tape in the room, and we're going to use that. That's what we'll show the network. And it was one of the more painless auditions too, which was really nice.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. That was also that was one of the truly gorgeous things about Catherine, was she was funny as hell. So she gets to play the drama, she gets to be the villain and manipulative, but she's funny. Her scene, you brought that to it, which had she just been a villain, it would have been really dull, I think.
I think so. Yeah. I don't want to do dull,
Megan Follows does not do
not be dull. It's one of the things I go to the job saying, don't be dull this time, for God's sake.
Oh, absolutely. You can't help but fear her and also root for her the whole way throughout the show.
Absolutely. Only she killed that Mary.
How nasty she is. You gotta love her.
Gotta love her.
What about Adam, Rachel, Torrance? Oh my God!
Yeah, how did you guys?
So creepy. Do you guys remember? It's so creepy. Do you guys remember your auditions?
Mine was pretty simple, and like you guys, I mean, I wasn't sort of going for a series regular, because that can be so super intimidating. I keep finding when you go to sort of studio and then you go to network testing, I always find that so insane, the level of pressure, and you bring in your A game again. You've been in the room once and you've had a producer session, then you've had, anyway, going up to networkers and saying, so thank God this wasn't like that. Yeah, I had, I think, 2 meetings on it. I had a producer and the casting director in the room. For some reason on that particular day, I normally sort of like to tinker with the look of the character a bit, not being over the top about it, but just to have a few suggestions and walk in. And that particular day, I felt, I think I was a bit over it with castings. I've been to a bunch of castings recently. I was just a bit like, oh my God. So it literally was t-shirt, jeans, threw my hair up in a little knot and unshaven. And I just walked in and I was just like, all right, guys, come on, let's hit it. And it was just funny. I guess that energy seemed to work on the day. It's kind of so nice in England when you audition in England. So basically, the most people that you'll have in a room for big shows is sort of the casting director and maybe the director and the producer, 3 max, and then if you've got the job. But in LA, if you get all the way up to network casting, it'd be 15 people in the room, and they're all sort of peering out from behind their screens, and you sort of say, "Hey guys," and they all sort of studiously don't give you anything. And it's the most unnatural thing.
Just getting nothing. Nothing.
You've signed legal like 2 inches thick, like talking about the next 7 years of your life and all the money you stand to gain, and your mind cannot possibly be on the parts at that point. You walk in the room and nobody says hello back to you, and then you're supposed to give your best work. It's the wrong way to do it, America.
That's why I'm not always crazy about auditions.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm
Absolutely. Absolutely. Torrance, what about you?
There are no auditions now, so
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
All gonna be
I love auditions.
My process was interesting. I went. It finished kind of similar to what Megan described, but it started out, I went in and I did a pre-read for it, and initially I got sent 2 auditions, one for Bash and one for King Henry. So going back to the age thing, and I kind of split the ages because Bash was in the character breakdown was supposed to be 17 years old, and I was like pushing 30 at this point. So I went in and I did it. I thought I had a good handle on the character, but at a pre-read, there's usually no camera in the room. It's just you reading with a casting director. So I read with the casting director. Next day, I heard about all my friends screen testing and doing this stuff. I'm like, well, I didn't get it. So a month later, I was actually putting a friend of mine on tape for one of the ladies in waiting. And she said, they still haven't cast Bash. Maybe you should do that. And I asked, so I sent an email going like, hey, so I know that they wanted to see me for King Henry and I never read for that, but then apparently they still haven't cast this thing. I want to make sure I haven't been overlooked.
You mean you might have been my husband if you'd done King Henry? I might have gotten jiggy with Bash after all.
That's right. I know.
Could have been canon.
Wow. That's something to think about.
That's a fan theory.
It's a very popular fan theory.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying. You were saying. I'm blushing.
So anyhow, long story short, I ended up going out for it again about a month later, making sure I wasn't slipping through the cracks. And I threw it on tape. Quickly, I got this sort of frantic call, like, yeah, they're showing stuff to producers tomorrow. So I put the scenes on tape, and they came back and said, like, nah, not quite. Oh well. And so I was like, okay. So I moved on, and then a week later, they're like, actually, they want to see you again. And then I walked into the room, and it was the director and the creators, and like it was this whole. They didn't tell me I thought it was just going to be with the casting director, but I walked in and it was the whole panel. And then I walked out of there, and then I found out I had a screen test, and so I was prepping for the screen test, and they said, actually, no, they're just going to cast you.
Yes, that's what you want.
Oh wow.
So I avoided the whole, the stadium seating audition after having signed a whole contract and everything.
Hallelujah, mate. Well done. Well done. Karma was on your side.
That's great. I think we take for granted that we just get to watch these shows and we just get to see these incredible characters. And, there's so much that not only goes into actually acting and creating the characters, but just even getting the part. So that's awesome to learn and hear about. Thank you guys. Before we head out, I want to just ask, looking for the future, when quarantine is over, we all get out of here, what's the first thing you all want to do?
want to have all my friends
Everybody
over.
in
Everybody at the same time. No.
Adelaide.
I want to be with people. I want to go to a really nice restaurant and have support a really great restaurant and have a bunch of my friends, a large group of people eating food with being out and having somebody else cook the meal, and that's what I want.
And this will sound creepy, but it's not meant that way. But I've like it's LA. It's kind of sunny. It's reasonably pleasant here. People are behaving, so we're not suffering as a lot of other places are. But I just miss the tactility of friends, like not touching people, and it's a really strange, learning to use these kind of things to talk. But I look at just Torrance's face. I want to squidge it with my hands, and just that stuff is like being said, just to be with people and to not be, and people being afraid of contact and touch at the moment is so kind of weird and awful. And I understand why it's necessary, but when we move beyond that, I think I'm excited by that. So.
No, we're just all really touch starved. It's like an actual thing. You're feeling touch starved.
Yeah.
You haven't had physical human on human contact in
just him.
Oh. Adelaide, you were saying you wanted to just hang out with friends.
I just want to see my friends. I just want to see them. I want to hug them and smush their little faces. I don't care. We can go out. They can come here. I just want to pile all my friends into like a pile and then just lie on them for an hour. I love you. Just crush them with my love. I miss you. I love you so much. I missed you so much. Let me squeeze you until you pop.
Adam and Rachel, what about you guys?
Rachel?
I'm actually really looking forward to giving my mom and my brother a hug. Because I came back to Toronto to be close to them just in case anything happened, because my mom's older, but I haven't been able to see them because I've been worried. I didn't want to bring anything to my mom, but it's kind of killing me to be here and not just get to give them a big hug. So I'm looking forward to that, I think. And then everything everyone else has said. I was just talking, Addie, we were talking and I said we need to go for a great walk in nature for ourselves.
No. You said that. And
I said that.
At a bar with a nice thick martini and a lot of friends. Nothing to do with nature.
You didn't respond to that text, so yeah, I guess it was just me. I did that,
yeah. you know better. You know better.
I do. What about you, Adam?
I think it's what everybody's just said, really. But it is friends and family. Yeah, want to spend time with them, and also just to travel again. Like whether that is a massive hike or if it's getting on a plane and going to a beach somewhere else in the world or whatever it is. But to travel, I miss terribly. We're very lucky in the position that we are. We get to travel for work as well as maybe pleasure and all the rest. But I love that. But saying that, the skies are so blue out there. It seems a pity to put all the jet streams through them again and have the LA, the currently deeply Asia blue skies out there turn to the sort of insipid white of the sort of smoggy LA. It's so beautiful out there. It seems a pity to put any jets up in it,
Yeah. Well, thank you all for your time. I personally want to thank you because rain, as a complete happenstance, ended up being my quarantine show before I got asked to do this and moderate this event this weekend. So thank you for making my quarantine a little bit brighter, and for making everybody who's watching this weekend, making their time at home a little bit brighter too. So we absolutely thank you so much for coming out and supporting. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for doing this too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You guys, I miss you.
Bye.
People fight for your heart is trained, but this feeling is true. You taught my brain how to pick up clues. Past is the pain.